Hello everyone out there, my name is Rob and you are very welcome to another edition of this little video series I like to call Reluctantly Human. If you haven't seen me before, I'm an author and an educator, and I launched a book a few years ago about my own autobiographical journey of being a stuttering homosexual and how I came out the other end of that with the message that there's nothing to fix. Now, that is a great message to have, but it got me thinking, if there is nothing to fix and we are all whole and complete, then why is it sometimes so difficult just to be human? Last month, I talked about the idea of joy, finding joy in the little things. And this month, I wanted to look at the exact opposite of joy, suffering. So let's jump right in. Now, I know we all hate suffering. Suffering is horrible, it sucks, and many of us spend a lot of our lives trying to avoid it. There's that famous quote that pain is necessary and suffering is optional. It's pretty profound and clever. I don't know who wrote it, and Google wasn't very clear either. But what they did have was an interesting breakdown, looking at the idea that pain is the physical pain that our bodies feel because we are physical beings, and the suffering comes from the stories we tell ourselves about that pain. Now that was pretty profound. The stories we tell ourselves about the pain is where the suffering comes from. And this actually got me thinking about this month's author and book. The author is a man called Manson, and his book is called The Subtle Art of Not Giving an F, an Unconventional Approach to Living a Good Life. Now, you've probably seen this book. It's a very famous book at this point. You can buy it in hardback, or you can go to my favorite audio downloadable app, Audible, and download it. Why? Well, as I've discussed before, I'm lazy and I find listening to books very enjoyable and convenient. So I recommend you check out the book either way. It's a funny book, Manson's book. I must admit, when I looked at it first, I thought it'd be some kind of Quibi or some kind of hard-nosed account of how to push in your life, how to get what you want to achieve. And reading through it, it was very surprising. Number one, it's very light in terms of jargon. Manson uses his own life and he uses his own colourful words to speak about his own life. So he curses a lot, gives some brilliant examples that in fact will have you laughing out loud because they're so real. They're the kind of examples I would love to give but can't because then nobody had watched this video and I'm not famous and rich like Mark Manson. So hats off to you, sir. It serves the purpose. It makes the book very accessible, and he in fact gives a whole chapter over to suffering. He claims that suffering is a part of life. So the question isn't how do I stop suffering? It's more why do I suffer? And he brings up the idea of having good and bad values associated with suffering, and I'm going to kind of modify this a little bit, Mark, I hope you don't mind, into good and bad reasons for suffering. Because when I look back at my own life, I've suffered a lot. And in the process of making this video, I had to actually take a step back and ask myself, so okay, why was I suffering? Did I have good or bad reasons or good or bad values associated with that suffering? And I'm going to share a few examples from my own life. I invite you to look at yours. And really, the point of this is to just look and see, why do we suffer? Let's take a look. So yeah, what I'm going to talk about today in terms of suffering is really the one thing I don't talk very much about, and I don't particularly want to talk about this right now. It's about having severe acne from the age of around 18 to around 26 years old. The reason I don't want to talk about this is because it still hurts in many ways. If I get a spot, I feel that old panic of, oh my gosh, is my acne coming back? But more than that, it's the case that I see now that I had a choice. With other suffering in my life, whether it was being gay or having a stutter, I didn't choose that. I didn't make a conscious choice and say, yes, give me that. But when I look back and I think of my experience with my skin, there was a very clear choice, and wasn't the best choice I made at the time. Let me take you guys on a bit of a journey then. So I was 18 years old. As everything in my life, I was late to the boat. So as most of my peers had gone through puberty, had been developing muscles and body hair and growing into real men, I was still a little meek man-child. And the first spot or two on my face at 18 was a sign that, wow, maybe I'm actually about to go through this process of puberty. It wasn't fun for me doing it late. Brings its own experiences, but the spots and the acne came on pretty suddenly. I think what started as a few spots, within the first 6 to 7 months, it became really red skin, spots all over my skin. And in fact, I would usually get large pus-filled spots that would be around my face and my cheek, so it would be difficult to talk or eat. You certainly couldn't hide them. You didn't want to touch them because they were sore. And I even remember waking up mornings with pus and blood on my pillow because the spot had burst in the night. It's pretty disgusting stuff, I know. And you know, I'm sharing it because this was the experience. I went on over-the-counter medication, I went on herbal medication, I even went on special diets. And I struggled with this for years. There was the physical shame and the physical aspect of knowing that people were looking at your skin. You were told, oh, it doesn't matter, or it's not that bad. Now, anyone who says that to you, it's not that bad, of course it's bad. You know, you can hear it coming out of their mouth. I would have maybe preferred, you know, yeah, Rob, Jesus, your skin is really bad. Maybe you should stay in today. At least that would be an honest answer. The emotional ramifications of having to deal with severe acne and bad skin was more around social anxiety. I would hate going out. I would stop looking at people in the face. I would feel ashamed and embarrassed. And I felt crappy. It was really horrible. With a stutter, you could hide it. With your sexuality, you can hide it. There was no hiding from this. And it reinforced those other underlying issues that I was also dealing with and suffering. So it was a really hard time. It was probably one of the hardest times in my life, and it's one that I don't talk very much about because yeah, it really hurts. After years of going through this, after my first speech course with the McGuire Programme, I was about 26 years old. And I came out of that course with the ability to pick up the phone and more realization that life was more than just suffering from things. I can remember making a phone call to a dermatologist, rocking up there, getting allergy tested, and within a week I was on a medication called Roaccutane. I'd heard about it for many years. My GP had recommended it, many people had recommended it, but I hadn't gone on it because of the side effects. But at this point, at 26, I was like, I don't care. I will go on it. I will go through the blood tests every month. I will liaise with my GP and I will do what I need to do to get rid of these spots. Why? Because I'm done with suffering. I'm done with suffering through this. And within 6 months, my skin cleared up. It was that simple. And in making this video, having to look back and really feel those feelings, but to ask myself, why did I choose to suffer through that? What kind of value did I have that encouraged me to keep suffering with bad skin? And the truth of it is, it was a way of playing the victim card, I think. Playing the victim, poor me, life is just so hard. And it was a role I got very used to playing. Having a stutter, there's a similar feeling that you're not as good as other people and you can either fight that or you play into the role, and I certainly played into it. The other thing, I think, having bad skin and being able to use that as an excuse. If I was having a bad day, I could blame my skin. I didn't have to say I was having a bad speech day, or someone laughed at me because I couldn't say my name, or I didn't have to be honest and say, actually, I think I might be gay. I could use having bad skin as a kind of mask, if you will. So let's turn this on its head then, and let's have a look at the idea of suffering for a good reason or having good values associated with suffering. Again, I could give you a few examples, but the one I'm going to share today is around making these videos. I don't like making videos, I don't like posting on social media. I have this fear of people looking and judging me and knowing what I am doing or knowing what I'm not doing. So it's not something that I do, it's not my default. So when it came to sharing the first video last month, I wanted to get some feedback from people I trust. So, as you can probably guess, the first person I sent the video link to was a very patient person, a very clever person, a person who has my back all the time. I know her, and you now know her as Coach Nina. So I sent Nina the video link when I'd finished editing the first episode. I sent it to her at about 7:30 at night, so I figured she'd get back to me pretty fast. I tried to remain calm, I had a cup of tea, I tried to listen to YouTube videos, and I just could not relax, so I jumped into a cold shower. And after getting out of the shower, I'd missed a call from her and she'd left a text, "Please give me a ring back, I hope you're not scared." And I was like, scared? I'm not scared of you, Coach Nina. Picked up the phone, rang her back straight away because I was afraid she'd be upset if I didn't ring her back quickly. And we both laughed at the fact that, of course I'm afraid. You and I both know that I don't like feedback, I don't like posting things, I'm doing this. And then she asked me, "Yeah, so you are doing this, why are you doing it?" And it gave me an opportunity to really think about it. Why am I doing it? I could say it's to keep my website up to date so I get to look good. I could also say that it's, putting my face out there and sharing with the world what I'm doing in the hope that maybe someone like Ellen might someday see my video and be totally struck by how handsome and articulate and clever that I am, and she's going to ask me onto her show, and then I'll get to sell lots of books and I'll get lots of money, and I can then live in a beach house getting fed grapes by hot men as they polish my Porsche GT3 RS in the garage. It's a lovely story, I really like it. So if anyone out there knows Ellen, please feel free to send her the link. God knows I'm not doing much these days, We're all stuck at home because of a global pandemic. It's very funny, and it's also very selfish. And the first reason is also selfish in the sense that it's looking good. And then Nina asked me, to keep looking because Coach Nina, I was being coached. And I remembered a thing I've shared a couple of times. Why did I write my book in the first place? I did it for my teenage self and for everybody's teenage self out there. As I get older, I see that really adults are just big kids. We're all still dealing with issues, and teenagers themselves are dealing with issues, and we're all dealing with issues. And so to share myself and to share my own stories in the space of helping my teenage self really made sense in that moment. Given right now that I've just shared about having spots, I think back to my 17, 18-year-old self, and I remember the fear and the anxiety and the shame and the pain I felt through going through that. And the hope that maybe someone watching a video like this, it might give them hope, it might give them inspiration to maybe look at the options they might have to go on medication, as long as you are supervised, is an option, and it can reduce suffering. And by sharing that, it really got me clear on this idea that it's for other people. It's actually not about me. It's not about Ellen calling me, or it's not about my website looking good. It's about helping other people. So let's have a look then. Let's wrap this video up with a physical exercise. We've talked about suffering in terms of good and bad suffering. I've looked at the idea that suffering is a part of life. So if it's a part of life, how do we become better at suffering? Specifically, how do we build our resilience to it? Well, I have a great physical exercise. I've alluded to it in the last part of the video with Coach Nina. When I feel nervous, when I feel my head running or I can't relax and focus, I take cold showers. Now, I tried taking a cold shower every day for a month, and it was difficult, and I'm not going to lie, I don't anymore take cold showers every day. I take one maybe 2 or 3 times a week, especially after a workout or if I'm feeling anxious for whatever reason. Why do I do this? Why a cold shower? Well, Really, if I'm journaling or if I'm using positive affirmations, that's a very mental exercise. It's all very much in your head or in your heart. And I find cold showers get you in touch with your head and your body a lot quicker and in a much more visceral, real way. Cold showers are like suffering. They're not pleasant and they suck and people avoid them like the plague. But when you start to learn to stand under a cold shower, I would assert that you really learn to build excellent resilience, first of all. And it also gives you an immediate connection to your mind and your body because they have to work as a team if you're to stay under freezing cold water. The first thing I find happens is the mind. The mind is screaming, come on, run, turn it off, turn it off. And I've trained myself to think, no, you're standing under the cold shower, it's uncomfortable, it's cold, I'm going to stand here for 5 minutes. Why? Because that's what I'm choosing. This is suffering, I know, and I'm choosing to suffer through this. And the mind, all those voices, all that screaming tends to go quiet as you just get very clear, I'm under a cold shower and I've got this. As the mind calms down, the body also calms down. That fight or flight urge kind of fades and you're left in your physical body feeling the cold. And a way to really counter this is with the breathing. You get quite conscious of your breathing and you take deep breaths, regulate the breaths. And what I find happens after about 5 minutes, your mind and body begin to work in sync, which is a lovely feeling. They're working as a team. They're also calm, and that calming effect I love more than anything else. It quietens my head, it gets me into my body, it focuses me on the breath, and it gets me centered in a real quick way. I don't have to spend 30 minutes thinking about feeling. Within 5 minutes, I'm there under a cold shower. So I highly recommend them. I think it's a great way to build resilience in the face of suffering. Choosing it, why? So is that you become a stronger person, mentally and physically, so that when you're taking on good suffering in your life, whether that's taking on a new job, taking on having kids, taking a risk that has terrified you for years, in my case, taking action and going on spot medication, so you save yourself years of suffering. It's definitely worth it. And good suffering gives us good people. And good people in the world is what I think we really need, especially at times like now. And yeah, again, that's how I'm going to wrap this video up. Try it and see how you get on. If you are going to take on having a cold shower, start off kind of slowly. Don't jump into an ice cold shower, that's crazy. But step under a warm shower and gradually make it cooler. And as you become better at doing it, get it colder, stay under it for longer, and just see what opens up. So with that, it's the end of this video. Thank you very much for being here till the end. I hope you enjoyed it and I hope you got something from it. If you think it can help people, feel free to share. Especially Alan, wink wink. And I will be back next month, okay? Thank you very much, stay safe and stay good.